Last week we had some wild takes, like the Panthers sweeping the North and the Bears finishing 9-8. Today, we're going to revisit those predictions and take a deeper dive as to how we came to those conclusions. If you enjoy this kind of NFL content, support the Gridiron Podcast by subscribing below. We really appreciate it. All right, so kind of off topic. Obviously, we're also baseball fans. I'm repping the Detroit Tigers. You have your Chicago Cubs. Now, opening week was this week. And let's kind of talk about your Cubs real quick because something happened that I wasn't really expecting to happen, and I'm sure you weren't as well. Talk about that.
Well, Nick, being a Cubs fan always is an up and down roller coaster, and this past weekend was abysmal from the Chicago Cubs. They dropped to the series. They dropped the series to the Nationals, who are projected to lose 90 plus games this season. So, of course, as a Cubs fan, fourth straight season starting 1-2, losing the opening series, not surprised, but at the same time, very surprised because of how hot this team is predicted to win 90 plus games. And this is a series I think later down the road, you might look back on and say, we needed that one.
Yeah, it was definitely surprising for me as well because looking at the projected records for both these teams, as you mentioned, and seeing how the Cubs kind of performed for the past 4 years, give or take, for their entirety of their season, not just opening week, has been very interesting because you look at their final records and they're either right on the cusp of the playoffs or making the playoffs. And to start 1-3 each one of those 4 seasons has been very interesting.
Yeah, so that's my opening weekend. It's baseball season, but I'm happy. So, how about your Detroit Tigers?
Yeah, so opening series, they faced off against the San Diego Padres. And let's just say Detroit did what Detroit does, putting belt to ass against teams, especially teams with San in front of their name. But I will mention Kevin McGonigal. He's a rookie, 21 years old. He is the fourth player in MLB history since 1900 to have 4 hits in his MLB debut. In the very next game, he almost hit a home run where he got robbed at the wall. So it is, as you mentioned with the Cubs, as a Tigers fan, it's very up and down because we've had years where we had 0.2% chance of making the playoffs in August to making the playoffs, and then the very next year dropping a 15 and a half game lead to lose the division. So there has been those up and down years, and watching Justin Verlander pitch yesterday, he was rough. He was rough. I was excited to see this signing as a young Tigers fan would be to see Justin Verlander back in the old English D, but he was just abysmal yesterday. Giving up 5 earned runs, 1 strikeout in 3 and 2/3 innings.
But some of you might be asking, why are we talking about baseball? Honestly, it's baseball season. Opening weekend just happened. Had to throw, a little interesting topic in there before we start talking about what we predicted last week and how we came to those conclusions. So instead of giving out records like we did last week, we're going to analyze some key games that decided the NFC North and games that Nick and I might honestly disagree on, because last week we were kind of agreeing more, to try to get like a ballpark range of, predictions of records, but nonetheless, I think that it'll be good if we revisit these games and actually give our honest opinions so we can be a little more accurate, or a little more honest, I guess is the word. So, Nick, I'll let you start with the last week's predictions and a couple games I think from each schedule that, you think are a big one, a swing point for each team.
Yeah, so last week, I'll start with saying the records that we had for these teams last week. We had the Lions at 13-4, Packers at 11-6, Bears at 9-8, and Vikings at 3-14. I do feel like some key games for really each one of these teams, minus outside of the division, is those games against the NFC South, because each of these teams are facing each one of the NFC South teams, and that is 4 games right there against a very unpredictable division in the NFC South. But outside of the NFC South, I'll say a key game for each one of these teams. I think the key game for the Chicago Bears is going to be that game against Tampa Bay. I know I said outside of the division, but also the Rams. Those 2 games I think is going to be the key games. And for the Lions, I think it's going to be the game against the Giants. We saw them go into overtime last year. And also the game against Buffalo. That was a really high scoring game 2 years ago with a final of 48-42 with half of the Lions roster injured. So that is another key game in my opinion. For the Green Bay Packers, I mean, you could probably disagree with me. I know you're going to agree with one of these. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills. I think that's going to be a really key game. Yes, it's not going to really determine playoff factor, but I think just for the confidence of either one of those teams, it is going to be a key game for both teams. And then in terms of the away games, I am going to honestly say the Jets, because the Packers are known to drop one of those weird games. We mentioned it last week. And I feel like an away game that's going to be one of those weird games is going to be the Jets.
That would be brutal if they drop to the Jets. I mean, that's worse than the Panthers, maybe worse than the Browns even at this point. You
And
know, oh, go ahead.
the Vikings, I'm going to say one key game is going to be against Washington, because Washington is one of those teams that can be a playoff team when healthy. Because if you're Minnesota, you need to step up to the plate to be able to prove those doubters wrong. And it's going to start with that Washington game. If you can come in and beat Washington at home, that is going to be a huge game. And then in terms of the away games, it's going to be San Francisco, because San Francisco, when healthy, mind you, when healthy, it could be a very dangerous team. But at the same time, San Francisco did lose a lot of key players this offseason already. So that's going to be a key game, because you have a questionable defense for the 49ers against a questionable offense for the Vikings.
So the thing that I want to do is looking at these games. As we said already, we predicted them last week. We got the Lions at 13-4, Packers 11-6, Bears 9-8, Vikings 3-14, as we already said. Just what I want to do is I want to go through the schedule and pick those 1 to 2 games where I think you and I might have a different opinion. And let's see if if the Bears beat the Buccaneers. Let's just say I say that. Let's see the difference in record and see if it really makes a drastic difference, or do we still have them kind of in the same order? That's what I'm trying to figure out, because we'll get into this later. We thought totally different, and it's kind of interesting how we have the order. So starting with the Detroit Lions, I think you did hit it on the head. I think the game against Tampa Bay is a big one, and the Patriots at home. I think those are 2 big games for the Lions at home that I don't want to say are must wins, but you at least got to win one of those.
Yeah.
And I think last week we did say the Lions would sweep, go 2-0. And I think they do drop one of those games, in my opinion.
Okay. Let me guess. You'd probably say the one that they drop is probably New England, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I disagree is because yes, New England is a really good team, but if the Lions can get pressure on Drake May, he is the type of quarterback. It's the same thing with Caleb Williams. It's the same thing with Kyler Murray. It's the same thing with a lot of these quarterbacks. When they get under pressure, they tend to throw the ball either away or into the defender's hands. I will say that is one key thing. If the Lions are able to provide pressure on Drake May, that is going to be really the turning point. And I do think it's going to be an offensive showdown. And I just think that the Lions' offense is too star studded to fall against the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, I will give it to the Lions. They definitely have a better receiver core than the Patriots do. I just think, it's going to be one of those fluky Jared Goff turnover games. He always has one of those games. And, it is a tough Patriots defense. And,
Right.
if Jared Goff turns over the ball a couple times, fumbles, who knows, there's going to be a lot of problems. So I do see them dropping one, if not both of those games. But at worst, though, I do have the Lions sitting at 11-6 at worst. So even then, that's almost still double positive. You may disagree with that or agree with that, but at worst, 11-6. Because looking at the road games, I can see them dropping a weird game. I mean, Buffalo, I do see them dropping that, but it's pretty tough to say. They're not going to lose to Miami, I hope not, or
Now,
Arizona.
can we say something like not like trolley mode?
Yeah, not trolley mode. Yeah, we did.
Okay. Can
Yeah.
we talk about the matchup between the Lions and the Panthers, please?
Yeah, no, I mean, I got the lines there, Bryce Young, man. I mean, that was so
Okay,
trolly.
so 12-5
Yeah,
at
all right.
worst.
12-5 at almost, yeah, at worst. I mean, even if they drop one more game, 11-6, like that's we're a ballpark.
So we're between 13-4, 12-5, 11-6.
So yeah, I mean, average 12 or yeah, average would be 12-5.
Okay.
That's like the worst. So that's pretty good still. I mean, that's kind of nuts.
Yeah, because I can't get away with saying that the Lions are going to lose to the Panthers. I just can't. Because, one, we talked about this prior to recording. It's Bryce Young.
It's
It's
Bryce
Bryce
Young.
Young.
Yeah, he's no threat.
And they did add some key pieces, but at the same time,
That defense is still a
the
mess.
the defense, yeah. And against the Lions offense, yeah.
I don't know. I might be wrong about this, but I think there was a point last season for the Panthers that they were like barely averaging 20 points. But then I think as the back end of the season came, I think they were over 20 points. I could be wrong
Yeah.
about that. I thought there was something about
I
that.
think they finished the season at like 22.5.
I could be wrong about that, but I thought so. So correct me if I'm wrong, but
And the
yeah, we'll
Lions were
see.
averaging still like 35.
But moving on to my Green Bay Packers, we had them at 11-6, and we had them losing to the Panthers at home, which I just don't see. I think a game for me that, or a couple games that I could totally see going the wrong way for the Packers. Cowboys, Texans at home. Those are two big home games, and away, I can see them. We said the Rams loss. I can see them losing to a weird game like the Buccaneers and the Heat. I mean, in Florida, New England, if it's cold, I could totally see it. So, in my opinion, let's see. They lose to the Bucks. They lose. I said that already to the Rams. They lose. I don't know if we had the Packers losing to the Patriots last week.
I think we did.
Okay, so let's just say they lose to the Texans and Cowboys and the Buccaneers, because I think we had them winning all those games. They're sitting at, wow, 8-9, 3 losses. They're 11-6 to 8-9. That's a big gap.
Yeah.
That's a big change. I mean, I could totally see it though.
So you're saying that the fluke game at home is going to be Houston.
I don't even know if it's considered a fluke game. I think that's a tough game. Like, I think 2 or 3 years ago, they played and like it was like 29-27 came down to the wire kind of game, or 24. It was a close game. It was like 24-21, something like that. I think, I mean, it's going to be a close game, I think.
Yeah,
Both of
because
those
I
games are,
mean, I could see them losing to New England. I could
yeah,
potentially see them losing to Houston.
yeah.
I could see them losing to Tampa.
They actually, since I'm doing this now, they really can't afford a fluke loss like the Jets, Saints, or at home. They really can't
Yeah.
afford it. So that's actually interesting. So at worst, they're 8-9. At the best,
And in this division, it could mean eight
yeah,
and nine missing the
and out of
playoffs.
playoffs, right? And at best, I think 11-6 is safe to say. If you disagree with that,
I think 11-6 at best is safe.
that's like peak mode. Yeah.
I don't see them winning 12 games.
No, no, I don't. I don't think so.
So 11 in between 11-6 and 8-9. Let's say for average 10-7.
Yeah, I mean 9-8, 10-7. Yeah, I mean, wow.
Yeah, because
Or
so they really cannot afford that
fluke loss. Yeah,
fluke loss. Like for instance, like Carolina, Atlanta,
right.
Jets, Saints, even the
They got to win
Cardinals.
those. For the Chicago Bears, um, yeah, we had them at 9-8, and I think a couple games that we said they lose. All right, the Panthers. Let's just start there. 10-7.
Yep.
We're just gonna do it. 10-7. I don't know. I don't recall who else. I know we had the Eagles beating them at home. Did we say they beat the Jaguars? I think we did because of
We had them
T-Law.
beating the Jaguars.
Yeah.
Uh,
Patriots. I think we had them
Buffalo.
losing.
We had Buffalo losing. Sorry, we had Buffalo taking it. We had
Right.
New England taking it.
The only couple of games, in my opinion, that are swing games here are the Falcons at
Seattle.
home. Yeah, I mean, I think Seattle, in my opinion, I think Seattle is just going to win that anyways. But
Yeah.
I think a swing game that could be interesting is the Jaguars, Patriots at home, those two games at home, and then the Falcons away. And the reason why I say the Falcons away, I don't know what it is, but Falcons at home can sometimes they either play, like I said, they either play really good or really bad. And it's like
Right.
if they're on, I know they got Tua back there now, but if they're on, they're still a deadly team.
They have a double lefty in Michael
Yeah.
Penix and Tua.
So at worst, I mean, if they drop those three games, well, we already have them at 9-8. I mean, that's
If
8
they
and
drop all
7.
three, you're talking about 8-9.
Yeah. That's not even
Is there a
better. What?
potential that the Bears and Packers go 8-9?
Well, okay, let's see. Chicago at best though. Let's just say they win. I mean, there's no way they win all those home games though.
Honestly, the New England one is tough.
Yeah, all right. I mean, prediction
At
wise,
best, we'll say 10-7. Because I don't see them beating Buffalo.
or
I don't
what if they pull an
or
upset?
no.
Like, what if they pull an upset though?
11-6 because Carolina.
11
They're
and
beating
6.
Carolina. I don't see them beating Seattle. I don't see them
No,
beating Buffalo. I don't see them. New England is a tough one.
that's the
They could beat Philadelphia. They could.
yeah. No, that might be the game right there that could be the swing, and they could be 11-6. Are we saying that, or 10-7 at best? 10-7.
10-7.
10-7 at best. All right. Going with so far to recall before we get to the Vikings, we have at best for the Lions, we met in the middle at 12-5. For the Packers, we're looking at 9-8, 8-9 area. For the Chicago Bears, we're looking at 10-7 to 9-8. And heading into the Vikings, we had them at 4-13. I mean, it's going to be pretty tough to say that they can really do any better. I mean, Panthers, yeah, all right, we'll give them that one.
We'll give them the Panthers.
Although
So
for the
5
Vikings,
and 12.
I don't think it's going to be a hand me game for them, but
Did we have them losing to Washington?
I think we did. I think we did.
They might be able to take that.
6-11. Hey, we're moving our way up.
Atlanta, no.
Those away
Buffalo,
games are pretty
no.
tough.
New England, no. New Orleans, I think we said they'll win that. Jets, I think we said that they'll win that. San Francisco, I think we have San Fran.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, we had Tampa Bay. I think those all stay the same.
Colts could be. I don't.
We had them splitting against Chicago, right? Or did we have Chicago sweeping them?
No, we had Chicago sweeping them. Yeah, I mean, if it's one of those week 18 things.
You know what? I'll give one of them to Minnesota.
It might be a week 18 kind of scenario. I mean, who knows? We're thinking pretty hard about this. All right, at best, the Vikings are 6-11.
Yeah.
6-11. All right. Still pretty interesting.
So we still have the Lions winning the division.
Yeah, looking at it, yeah, we do.
And then it'll probably come down to the tiebreaker between the Bears and the Packers.
Yeah. This is really, really interesting.
And then the Vikings still have fourth.
Yeah. Because midseason, we had said that the Lions had missed their Super Bowl window. The Bears were going to take over the division, and the Packers were stuck as a wildcard team. But now our predictions look completely different. So the question is, Nick, were we wrong? Or is this division completely unpredictable than we thought?
I think it's unpredictable because last year I know we said beginning of the season it was going to be the Lions and Packers fighting for that first seed, and then it was going to be Bears and Vikings. Little did we know that it was going to be Bears taking over the division, then the Packers, then the Vikings, then the Lions. I think, honestly, it is unpredictable. And at the same time, each one of these teams can't afford certain injuries. And I think each one of those teams this year had those certain injuries. You had the quarterback issues for the Vikings. You had the entirety of the secondary go down for the Lions. You had Micah Parsons go down for a little bit for the Packers. And you had some tight end issues as well as wide receiver injuries for the Bears. And I think you really can't afford those certain injuries. So that is part of the unpredictability. And because I feel like these teams are so closely built, where you have not really that top down sort of roster, you have stars at each of these positions. They're in the NFL for a reason. Maybe besides for JJ McCarthy, but that's a debate. But they're in the NFL for a reason, and you really have each one of these teams having a star edge rusher with Micah Parsons, Aiden Hutchinson. You have Sweat for the Bears, and then the Vikings. I think they still have edge. No. Who do they have still?
Rush. They got rid of a lot of their defensive line. I actually do not know who their edge rusher is at the moment.
Well, they have Van Ginkel, who was
he's like
solid.
Jonathan Grenard, he's good.
Yeah, so you have that edge rusher. You have maybe besides for the Vikings, you have that good quarterback with Jordan Love, Jared Goff, and Caleb Williams, and then really all these coaches and GMs know how to build their rosters the way that they need to, either through the draft or free agency or trades. Now, the unpredictability also comes into those games against the division, because we said that they split with the Packers in terms of the Lions. We said they split with the Packers, 2-0 against the Bears and 2-0 against the Vikings. They went 0-2 against the Vikings, 0-2 against the Packers, and 2-0 against the Bears. And it was the same thing for each one of these divisional games where you really didn't know how Minnesota and Green Bay would match up, or how Chicago and Green Bay would match up, or how really any of these teams would match up within the division. And I don't think either one of us saw the Bears coming out and doing what they did this past year.
Yeah, I just want to talk about our predictions because since we have the Lions winning the division, is because we had talked about the Lions missing their Super Bowl window. As a
Mhm.
Detroit fan, for you, if the Lions do come out, this year and they do go 12-5 or even better or first place, let's just say they win the North.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a one-off year, or do you think that this is a team that's a legit contender again? Because we had literally just talked about them missing their window, and now they are predicted. We predicted them to take the North.
I'm 50-50 on it because they did sign some good free agents during the offseason so far, but a lot of them are 1-year deals. The only one that's not a 1-year deal is Cade Mays. He is the only one that's not a 1-year deal. So I do feel like if they do win the division per our predictions and go far in the playoffs, I'm 50-50 on if it's just a one-off year because you will still have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you'll still have Penei Sewell, you'll still have Aiden Hutchinson, you'll still have Jahmyr Gibbs. What would really get me is after this year, you have to extend Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch. What they do then, I will say if the window is officially closed or not. I know this year I said if Brad Holmes sits on his butt and does nothing this free agency, the window is closed. He's done some good stuff. He's also done some bad stuff, aka getting rid of Dave Montgomery, but it turned into getting Isaiah Pacheco. We'll see how he comes off getting injured this past year. But if Isaiah Pacheco turns out to be good and he's sharing carries or okay with kind of giving Gibbs more carries than you would expect, I would be perfectly fine with it. But as of right now, I'm still kind of upset with the fact that David Montgomery is no longer a Lion. But we'll have to see how Isaiah Pacheco comes off of injury.
I think I'm in the boat that it is a 1 year fluky year. I think the schedule does play to their favor. I do
Okay.
think that there is potential for the Lions to take advantage of the schedule. And, if let's just say their schedule is flip flopped and they were away at the Patriots or they were away at Tampa, I think it could be a little different, prediction wise. But I think, being at home at Ford Field, like you said last week, the environment there is just different. And, Lions play different at home. And I think that makes a big difference. And I think that they can absolutely take advantage of the schedule. The reason why I say, it's a fluke is because I just don't see a world that, the Bears and the Pack. I mean, well, the Packers have been a wild card team for how many years now, but the Bears, I mean, we'll have to get to them. I just don't see a world that, we're predicting them to be as bad as they are. I just don't see
I
that.
think partially with the loss of DJ Moore is going to be a huge thing.
Yeah, no, their wide receiver core is definitely a question mark. Their offense is not solidified by any means because now it's a whole first year, second year guys. I mean, that's pretty much it besides Cole Kmet. But yeah,
Yeah.
speaking on the Chicago Bears, we did predict them to be third, and we did say that they would be first and they would take over the division. So are we more so doubtful about the Chicago Bears? Are they not as threatening as we think? Or is this just a schedule thing? Because there is a world that I could see they could really win almost 80, 85%, maybe even 90% of their home games. I mean, it's possible.
I think I'm more doubtful, in my opinion, because we saw how they won some of these games last year. They
Yeah,
were down
yeah.
and then came back to win. I really do think that if they're leading at halftime in any of those games last year, they were losing. Because you have to play a full 60 minutes of it is not just 30 minutes of football and call it good. You have to play a full 60 minutes. So part of me is doubtful because of how close some of these games were. I mean, you look at some of the ways that they pulled out some of these wins, and it's ridiculous. You had 2 weeks where they had blocked field goals. You have the playoff game that we watched where Caleb Williams back foot 40-yard pass to a wide open Cole Kmet. Like some of these ways that they were winning these games, I don't think can solidify them as taking over the NFC North because of how top heavy this division can be with the Packers and the Lions really over the last 3 years and how competitive this division is. Because one year you can have the Lions taking it, one year you can have the Packers taking it. Back in the early 2000s, yes, the Packers kind of ran the division, but as of the last 5 years, it's been flip-flopping every single year. You've had the Vikings win the division, you had the Lions winning the division, you had the Packers, you've had the Bears winning the division. So it's really been closer than we thought with the division. So that's why I do feel like with the way that they won these games last year and the fact that their offense is very questionable this year with that wide receiver core and even the running back core, we didn't really know how their running backs were going to be this year. And it turned out to be in their favor. So with like Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. Kyle Monangai came out of nowhere. I think it was like a 4th-round draft pick who turned out to be 7th-round draft pick who turned out to, in my opinion, probably one of the best offensive players in the division.
Yeah, easily.
So it is very competitive in this division. So that's why I do feel like I am more doubtful because of how they won the games last year and how they had to come back in 90% of their wins.
This is a really good point that you bring up because a lot of people, including myself, will just look at their record, look at their seed in the playoffs and say, wow, they really were good last year. But we did forget about those blocked field goals against the Raiders. You know, they could have lost those games and, 3 games, 2 comebacks against the Packers, crazy. And then the win, the touchdown in the playoff game with, against the Rams, those miracle throws and those miracle plays were just, unbelievable. And I know we talked about it before. It reminds me of like the Vikings, right? Their Mickey year. And then how about like even almost comparing it to like the Colts, like their 8-0 start, right? And then I'm not saying the Bears go 8-0, but if they start off hot like that, 6-2, 7-1, do they fall off though? Does Caleb Williams, I know he's going to be a project going into this year because of his completion percentage, and the receivers last year, they had a drop problem. So who knows if it gets worse because DJ Moore's not around. So now you really have to rely on these younger guys to make plays and catch the ball in big, tough spots. So maybe it isn't really as straightforward as we thought. And it is possible for the Bears to obviously be better than what we predicted, or maybe they might be worse. And hey, maybe the Packers might be worse, or they might be better. That's what predictions are for.
The Vikings might win it all.
Oh, man, that would be a fun episode if they somehow came out of nowhere again and Kyler Murray revived the Vikings. That would be a fun episode.
That would be very interesting.
But that's what predictions are for. And they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun because there's a lot of conspiracy.
Yeah, so this division is way closer than people think. And honestly, we might be completely wrong again by the time the season starts. So let us know who is winning the NFC North this year, because next week we're going to dive into the NFL draft and what each team needs for their team to succeed. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.